When his millionaire girlfriend said she looked like his missing mom, he froze in terror. All around him, laughter filled the air, but in that moment, it felt like a funeral. Jacob's heart pounded like a drum as his brain skidded to a halt. Mia, his gorgeous girlfriend, just smiled playfully, a mischievous sparkle in her striking blue eyes. But the words hung in the air like a ghost, a whisper of a nightmare he never escaped. "What did you just say?" he stammered. The room spinning. It wasn't just that she said it. It was the uncanny way her long, wavy hair framed her face like a twisted echo from his past. The elegant way her lips curved in a smile. How could it all look so familiar? Jacob's palms went slick with sweat, his thoughts racing. Deja vu crashed over him like a tidal wave. He hadn't seen his mother in over a decade, not since the day she vanished without a trace. Murmurs bounced through the crowd of friends gathered around their table. Eyes darted, and Jacob sensed the tension around him shift. "You okay, man?" asked Ryan, leaning in with a furrowed brow. Jacob barely heard him. All he could think about was how his mother's disappearance had tormented him with questions and sleepless nights. And now here was Mia, stirring up the very pain he tried so hard to bury. Of course. Just funny, right? He forced a chuckle, though his chest felt tight. Mia's laughter faded under the weight of his words. Was he imagining things? Was it just a joke? No way this beautiful woman could resemble the image etched in his mind the last time he had seen her, frail and desperate, looking back at him with eyes filled with a mix of love and pleading. A cold shiver shot down Jacob's spine as he gazed at Mia. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of recognition. Something darker? "You should stop joking, Mia. It's just a little unsettling," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The laughter around them began to falter, and the room filled with a strange, thick tension. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly off, and that fate was throwing him a wicked curveball. He failed to brush it away as another coincidence. When had life ever been that simple? The conversations blurred into muffled echoes, but his gaze never left Mia. Slowly, dread coiled around him. His mind raced with too many questions, dark revelations threatening to crawl out. If she looked like his missing mother, what did that mean for them? And why did Jake have the chilling realization that he didn't quite know who she really was? As the laughter faded and shadows crept into the corners of the room, the question hung heavier than ever. Was it possible that the past had come back to haunt him in the form of the woman he loved? Jacob's breath quickened. The room bustled with life, but he felt trapped inside a frigid bubble of isolation. It was as though the world around him had faded away, leaving only the piercing gaze of Mia and the deep well of memories flooding back with alarming clarity. He tried to blink them away, but they pressed in, relentless and suffocating. "Mia, where did you grow up?" he blurted out, the urgency cascading through his words. She paused, her playful expression turning to one of confusion, then thoughtfulness. "I grew up in a small town, just outside of Chicago." Why? Chicago, the city he had visited countless times, searching for traces of his mother. It was the last place he ever saw her, and suddenly the air felt heavy with possibilities. What if? A question he dared not voice. "Just curious," he muttered, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. He needed to stay calm. Panic wouldn't change anything. Ryan stepped in, attempting to lighten the mood. "Come on, Jake. You can't let her rattle you. Maybe she just means she looks like your mom in a cute kind of way." Jacob shot him a warning look, but Ryan chuckled, oblivious. The laughter around them resumed, lifting the tension, but not for Jacob. In the haze of humor, Mia leaned closer. "Seriously, Jake, are you sure you're okay?" Her blue eyes sparkled with concern, masking something darker beneath a flicker of challenge. "You seem different tonight." He swallowed hard, the lump in his throat feeling like a weight. "Yeah, just dealing with some stuff. You know how it gets, he replied, pain threading through his voice. The truth was ugly and twisted, a monster lurking in his mind. If she really was connected to his past, he couldn't risk it all for mere affection. The evening continued, but Jacob found himself floating in a whirlwind of mixed emotions. He watched Mia. Each smile, each laugh felt like a veil covering something he didn't understand. No one else seemed to notice how the atmosphere around them shifted, growing darker with each moment. The shadows at the edges of the room flickered like ghosts whispering secrets only he could hear. As the night wore on, Jacob could no longer dismiss his swirling thoughts. Had Mia been to that place, the alley where he last saw his mother? What if she'd known her? The very notion sent ice crawling along his spine. Suddenly, the music faded to a dull thump as Jacob noticed something strange about Mia's necklace. In the shimmering dim light, her charm caught his eye. It was familiar, a locket, shimmering with a polished glint. "Where did you get that?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the crack in his resolve. She glanced down, the color draining from her face. "Oh, this? It was a gift, just something my grandmother passed down to me." But her laugh sounded forced, almost brittle. He narrowed his eyes, his heart pounding. "What kind of charm is it? Just a family crest or something?" Her smile faltered, and for a fleeting moment, he caught a look in her eyes that whispered of memories not meant to be shared. The laughter turned into a murmur as the crowd sensed the shift in energy. Jacob's stomach knotted. What did she know? Could it be possible that the past was woven into their present in ways he never dreamed? The air grew thicker, suffocating. No answers. Only questions swirling like a vortex, pushing him toward a cliff's edge. "Mia?" he asked, his voice trembling with urgency. "What are you hiding?" Just as her lips parted to speak, the lights flickered overhead, plunging them into an eerie half-darkness. Shadows crept along the walls, and the laughter around them faded into an electric silence that thickened the air. "Jacob," she began softly, but before she could finish, the doors to the venue slammed open, and a stranger stepped in, their eyes scanning the crowd with a look that promised chaos. Jacob's heart raced as the stranger locked eyes with him, an unspoken tension crackling in the air. In that moment, Jacob knew this wasn't just another night out. The past was closing in, and the truth, whatever it was about to rear its ugly head. What secrets lay buried, waiting to be unearthed? Jacob's body tensed as the stranger stepped fully into the venue, slicing through the tension like a blade. His dark clothing hung loosely on a tall frame, but it was the expression on his face that sent chills skittering down Jacob's spine. It was a mix of determination and something darker, something predatory. Mia looked from the stranger to Jacob, her brows furrowing deeply. "Do you know him?" she whispered, fear creeping into her tone. But Jacob was already moving, his instincts kicking in. He couldn't explain why, he just felt it in his bones. The stranger was here for more than just a night out. He had a purpose. The distance between them closed unnaturally quick, and Jacob could feel his heartbeat thunder in his ears. "Stay here," Jacob said, gripping Mia's arm, then letting go as he forced himself to step away into the crowd. He pushed past people, their faces blurring into a haze, a mingling of confusion and laughter that felt worlds away. He couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted, the undeniable weight of the stranger's gaze glued to his back. Where was Ryan? Jacob turned his head, scanning the room, but he was swallowed by the throngs of partygoers. Panic surged as his breath quickened again. Then the stranger spoke, his voice echoing through the dim space, deep and smooth, but laced with menace. "Jacob, you've been a hard man to find." The air thickened around Jacob, pressing in, suffocating him as if it had morphed into a living thing. All eyes shifted towards the two of them, whispers rising like a tide. Who was this guy? What did he want? Jacob's mind raced with possibilities, each darker than the last. "Mia," he shouted desperately, the name leaving his lips like a prayer, but his eyes remained locked on the stranger. "Why don't we step outside?" the man suggested, a thin smile slicing his lips, revealing a sharpness that felt too predatory for comfort. "I think we have some things to discuss about the past." Before Jacob could form a response, the stranger moved like lightning. He closed the distance and grabbed Jacob's arm, his grip tight and unyielding. Mia's voice echoed in a high pitch above the din, panic threading through every syllable. Jacob, don't. Let him go. But it was too late. The stranger tugged Jacob toward the exit, his pulse crashing like waves in his ears. With each step, the room shrank behind him, laughter spiraling away to muffled noise. And outside, darkness stretched ahead, thick and impenetrable, an abyss waiting to swallow him whole. Suddenly, Jacob swung around, yanking his arm free just as they reached the threshold. His eyes met the stranger's, the confusion mixing with a primal fear. "What do you want from me?" he spat, desperation stirring the air between them. The stranger's smile widened, a glimmer of something dangerous. "I think you already know, Jacob. It's about your mother and the secrets she took to her grave." Jacob staggered back, his heart hammering against his ribs. This couldn't be happening. The words rang in his head, each one a hammer striking at the fragile wall of his denial. Secrets? What could he possibly know? In the chaos of his thoughts, a memory flashed: his mother in the kitchen, laughing, a locket dangling from her neck, her glaring resemblance to Mia suddenly making sense. But even as realization hit, fear followed. Unearthed truths could lead not just to answers, but to danger that could unravel everything he had tried to escape. Just then, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Mia was sliding out the door behind him, eyes wide, breathless. "Jacob, what do you mean?" He cut her off, the desperation in his voice palpable. "What do you know?" She hesitated, glancing back at the stranger, but before she could respond, he interrupted with a dangerous drawl. "You shouldn't bring her into this. It's better for her, and for you." Jacob's chest tightened. What if he was right? What if Mia's safety lay in keeping her in the dark? The crowd echoed behind him, laughter and music spilling out as the stark reality of his situation washed over him. Time was running out, and the answers that lurked just beyond the door could consume them both. He turned to face Mia, torn between protecting her and uncovering the truth. "We have to go," he said, urgency sweeping through him. But as they stepped into the unknown night, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were diving into a nightmare that had long been waiting for their arrival. Just how deep did Mia's connection to his mother run? And as secrets unfolded, who would truly be left standing when the truth came to light? The night air wrapped around Jacob and Mia like a shroud, humid and foreboding, pressing against their skin as they stepped into the abyss. The laughter from the party faded to nothingness, replaced by the distant thrum of city life, but an eerie stillness hung heavy between them. "Jacob, what is going on?" Mia's voice trembled, her concern palpable. He turned to face her, desperate to shield her from the truth swirling in his mind. "I don't know," he stammered. "But that guy, he knows something. About my mother. About us." Anguish twisted in Jacob's gut. The words felt foreign but real, echoing with a terrifying weight. Mia took a step closer, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "What do you mean, about us?" Just then, a flicker of a shadow drew their attention. The stranger had emerged from the venue, his tall figure silhouetted against the neon glow of the streetlights. He moved with an unnerving grace, gliding toward them like a predator on the hunt. "You should really listen to me, Jacob," he called out, his tone a twisted mix of persuasion and threat. "Secrets, after all, are meant to be uncovered or buried forever." Jacob's pulse quickened. The last thing he wanted was for Mia to be involved in whatever this was. "We need to get out of here," he urged, grabbing her hand tightly, pulling her away from the stranger's gaze. But the man laughed softly, a chilling sound that sent ice through Jacob's veins. "Running won't help you, Jacob. You can't escape the past. It's creeping up on you." He paused, his smile fading into something sinister. "And it has teeth." Jacob felt panic wash over him, cold and clenching. "Who are you?" he shouted, voice cracking. "What do you want?" "Let's just say I'm someone who knows your mother's secrets," the stranger replied, stepping closer, his presence a dark omen. "Secrets that could change everything you thought you knew." Mia's grip tightened around Jacob's hand, her breathing shallow. "We can't trust him, Jacob," she whispered urgently. Jacob's head spun as confusion morphed into a raw sense of desperation. "What if he's right?" he breathed. What if my mother was hiding something big? What if that's why his voice trailed off, a lump forming in his throat as painful memories flooded back? "Why she left?" the stranger finished, his tone teasing, filled with sick satisfaction. "Yes, Jacob. All families have their secrets. but yours may be darker than most. He took a step forward again, and Jacob felt Mia's presence grounding him. You think you can just walk into my life and tear apart everything? Jacob shouted. You think I'll just sit back and let you? The stranger smirked, a glimmer of challenge in his eyes. You've barely scratched the surface, Jacob. There are truths hidden in shadows you can't even begin to fathom. Your mother was not who you thought she was. As those words sank in, dread threaded through Jacob's veins. Stop, Mia interjected, desperation flooding her voice. Just tell us what you want. What are you after? A pause stretched between them, a taut razor-wire silence. Then the man chuckled, a hollow sound. What I want is simple. Jacob, I need you to understand that ignorance is dangerous. You and Mia have a part to play in this, whether you like it or not. Jacob clutched Mia's hand tighter, a protective instinct flaring in him. We're done talking. We're leaving. But as he turned to pull Mia along, he saw the stranger step forward once more, his expression shifting from amusement to something unreadable. Oh, but Jacob, you'll be back. The past has a way of catching up, and it's hungry. As he stepped away into the night, darkness closed in, and a chill crept along Jacob's spine. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, thickening with each passing second. What did he really know about his mother? And how could the truths uncovered so far only twist tighter around their lives? With every nerve ending buzzing with anxiety, Jacob knew they were only beginning a fight with shadows lurking in his family's history, shadows that could claim them both. What would they discover next? And when would the danger finally emerge from the darkness? The streets loomed around them, closing in like a noose. Jacob's heart raced as he pulled Mia further away from the sinister figure. The stranger's words echoed and twisted inside his head. His mother. Secrets. Shadows. Mia, we can't stay here, Jacob urged, urgency coating his voice. They were still too close, the danger palpable like the static in the air before a storm that as they hurried down the dimly lit street. Mia looked up at him, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Jacob, what do you think he meant? About your mother? His throat tightened. I don't know. I need to think. He could feel the weight of her gaze, the questions bubbling beneath the surface. Would she still see him as the same person if she knew? A flicker of motion caught his eye. He turned, heart pounding, half expecting the stranger to be right behind them. But it was just a cat, scurrying across the pavement, disappearing into the night. Let's south go to my place, Mia suggested, her grip on his hand firm. We can figure it out together. He nodded, grateful for her steady presence, the beacon of light in the swirling darkness. They turned down an alley, desperate to put distance between themselves and whatever horror the stranger had hinted at. As they passed under a flickering street lamp, the light caught the glimmer of something sharp on the ground. A piece of shattered glass. Jacob bent down to pick it up, instinctively drawn to its jagged edge, a metaphor for the chaos enveloping them. He clutched it tightly, feeling the familiar bite of pain as it tore into his palm. Are you okay? Mia asked, concern lacing her voice. Yeah, just he hesitated, eyes darting around, feeling the unease creeping back in. I just don't understand any of this. Why now? Suddenly, a noise resonated through the alley, a low rumble that sent a shiver racing down his spine. It was the sound of an engine, revving, growing louder by the second. They turned to see the headlights of a car racing toward them, illuminating the darkened alley. Jacob, we should go, Mia urged, but he was frozen, caught in the blinding light. His mind raced. Just when they thought it was past them, the car slammed to a halt. The engine roared, and the windows slid down, revealing a face that made Jacob's stomach drop. Get in. The driver barked. It was a friend of his mother's, Max, someone he used to see at family gatherings. But this man, didn't he look like the welcoming figure Jacob remembered? Tension radiated from him, eyes sharp with urgency. What? Jacob glanced at Mia, torn between the urge to trust the familiar and his gut instinct to flee. Now, Jacob. It's not safe. We have to talk. Mia squeezed his hand, pulling him closer. We can't just get in without knowing. But the urgency in Max's eyes was terrifyingly real. You don't have time for questions. There's no telling how long he'll follow you. Jacob's heart raced, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The stranger's cryptic warning echoed in his mind, the hunger of the past looming ever closer. He met Mia's gaze, reading the panic mirrored in her eyes. Two choices loomed like dark clouds stretching overhead. Stay and confront the encroaching danger, or jump into the unknown with Max Jacob. Mia squeezed his hand tighter, the uncertainty crackling around them. With a deep breath, he made a decision, but the consequences of that choice would unfold in ways he could never predict. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, rapidly approaching. What is it? Jacob gritted his teeth, glancing back. The shadows grew deeper, stretching toward him like grasping hands. Jacob, Max shouted, panic threading through his voice. He took a step back, uncertainty flooding him like ice. Could they really trust this man? But there was no more time. In that fleeting moment, Jacob felt the weight of his past crushing down as reality cracked open before him. What do I do? As he stood at this precipice, one truth crystallized in his mind. Once he stepped forward, there'd be no turning back. What darkness awaited? The unknown was closing in, and the past, hungry for retribution, had finally begun to emerge from the shadows. Jacob didn't hesitate. He took a step toward the car, pulling Mia along with him. Adrenaline surged through him, blending with fear, confusion, and a flicker of hope. The moment he climbed into the back seat, he felt a weight lift, if only slightly. The engine roared to life, and they sped away from the alley, the intimidating shadows shrinking in the rearview mirror. Who was that man? Max asked, his eyes glued to the road ahead. Did he say anything about your mother? He didn't say much, just that there were secrets, Jacob replied, still catching his breath. And that I had to be careful. He noticed Mia's fingers tremble beside him. Max's face tightened. Secrets? That's a big deal. Jacob, we have to get somewhere safe. He glanced at them through the rearview mirror, expression both serious and troubled. Safe? Where? Mia interjected, her voice laced with disbelief. We can't just run without knowing what's going on there. No time for questions. Max snapped. The intensity in his tone cut through the thick tension, snapping Jacob and Mia to attention. Trust me, you don't want to get caught up in whatever that man was implying. As they drove deeper into the night, Jacob's mind spiraled. Everything was happening too fast. Who was he? Why did the stranger bring up his mother? The pieces felt like fragments of a shattered mirror, sharp and disjointed. Jacob, is it true? Mia's question hung heavy in the air. Is there something you're not telling me about your mother? Her gaze was piercing, and he swallowed hard, memory colliding with reality. It hit him, then his mother hadn't just vanished. She had been tangled up in something dark, hidden from him for his entire life. I think there's more to it, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I don't know what, Mia? I'm scared. Scared? We're in the thick of it now. Everything that man said it could mean trouble, she said, glancing nervously out the window, paranoia etched on her features. Max took a sharp turn, the tires screeching against the asphalt. We need to lose them. Stay close, and whatever you do, don't mention your mother. Not yet. Not until we figure out how deep this goes. Their surroundings began to blur. Streetlights flickered by like shooting stars, leaving trails of light. Anxiety coiled tightly inside Jacob, constricting around his chest. Who is this guy? Mia finally asked, her voice shaking. Do you really trust him? I don't know. It's just that he has connected to my mom somehow, Jacob stammered. But I can't shake the feeling he might be hiding something too. Just as he finished speaking, Max slammed on the brakes. They were met with a red light glaring down upon them. Jacob's heart thrummed wildly, a panic fluttering up his spine. Stay close to the floor, Max instructed urgently. What? Jacob mouthed, confusion clouding his mind. Mia grabbed his arm, her grip firm and reassured. Wait, what are we doing? Then Jacob saw them. Two figures loomed at the corner of the intersection, scanning the road as if they were hunting for something not the kind of people Jacob wanted to bump into right now. Max, we need to go, he urged, his voice rising. But before Max could respond, the figures' eyes locked onto the car, the shadows stretching out like tendrils reaching for them. Jacob felt his heart drop. Had they been followed? In that moment, as fear gripped him, Jacob realized one undeniable truth. Whatever shape his past took, it was now hunting him. And time was slipping away fast. What do I do now? He thought, anxiety threatening to overwhelm him. All he could see was the cold, relentless gaze of the figures inching closer. Would they emerge from the darkness and drag him back into a twisted game he wasn't ready to play? And then he saw a glint of metal in one figure's hand. A weapon? His breath hitched. Max's voice broke through his thoughts. Hold on. As the car lurched forward, Jacob braced himself against the seat, knowing that whatever lay ahead could change everything. What answers were waiting for him in the dark? And would they be worth the danger they were racing toward? The car lunged forward, tires screeching against the pavement. Jacob's hands clenched the edge of his seat as they barreled through the intersection, the red light flashing in fury behind them. Heart racing, he stole one last glance over his shoulder. The figures were now sprinting after them, shadows morphing into menacing forms, cold determination plastered across their faces. Max, are they gaining on us? Jacob gasped, panic suffocating his thoughts. He couldn't tell if it was the adrenaline or the creeping dread that made his stomach churn. Just hold on, Max shouted, his voice thick with focus. The car swerved again, darting down a narrow alley. Bright yellow streetlights flickered ominously above, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to claw at the walls. What is the plan? Mia's voice trembled, betraying her unease. Jacob caught a glimpse of her in the dim light, eyes wide and searching, her face pale. Max glanced in the rearview mirror, his expression darkening. We need to get somewhere they can't follow. Somewhere, hidden. Hidden? Jacob echoed, a deep sense of foreboding gnawing at him. Was that even possible anymore? The alley twisted like a serpent, lined with closed storefronts and rusted metal dumpsters. The weight of the night pressed down around them, cloaking them in a false sense of safety. But Jacob knew better. They were still vulnerable, exposed in the heart of a city that never truly slept. Turn here, Mia suddenly cried, pointing toward a narrow side street where shadows congregated thickly. Max followed her direction, turning sharply, and the car jolted violently. Jacob's stomach lurched. Are you sure about this? Trust me, she insisted. The urgency in her tone sparked a fleeting sense of hope. Jacob squeezed her hand, willing some courage into the depths of his racing mind. As they pushed deeper into the labyrinth of darkness, the sounds of the city faded until only their ragged breaths filled the silence. It felt like they were slipping into another world, a place where secrets lived and dangers lurked. Suddenly, Max slammed on the brakes again. They skidded to a halt in front of an unmarked building, half collapsed, the windows smeared with grime. We'll hide here, he urged, casting a wary glance over his shoulder. We can't just sit out in the open. Jacob protested. What if they, before he could finish, the crunch of footsteps shattered the silence. A voice echoed down the alley. They went this way. I saw them. Jacob's heart dropped. He ducked down low, heart pounding in his ears. Were they hunters now? Prey being pursued in this wild, twisted game? Max shot Jacob a fierce look. We need to go inside now? The urgency was palpable. And what if it's a trap? Jacob shot back, fear flaring again. He could barely think straight, the weight of uncertainty making it hard to breathe. Better a trap than out here. Come on. Max insisted. They climbed out of the car. Jacob's heart raced, body tense as he peeked around the door. The figure had emerged from the shadows now, just a few feet away, eyes scanning. The other figure was already too close for comfort, their expression malicious and hungry. Mia grabbed Jacob's arm, pulling him through the door. The interior was dark. Faded graffiti danced across walls that seemed to absorb the light, creating an atmosphere thick with menace. Where do we go now? Jacob whispered, panic creeping back in. The sound of footsteps drew nearer outside, a monstrous drum roll signaling their doom. Downstairs, Max urged, his voice low and tense. We'll find a place to hide. Just follow me, and whatever happens, don't make a sound. Mia nodded, squeezing Jacob's hand. They slipped into a narrow stairwell, shadows wrapping around them as they descended, the chilling sound of those footsteps echoing above. Doubt gnawed at Jacob as he felt another truth crash over him. This was no longer just about his mother, this was about survival. With a low creak, the door above swung open. Cold air rushed down, and footsteps echoed, pausing for just a moment. Jacob's breath hitched. What came next would decide their fate. Would they face the truth hidden in the depths of that building? Would the past swallow them whole? The darkness of the stairwell swallowed them whole, every heartbeat echoing like a countdown to disaster. Jacob's pulse thundered in his ears, a relentless reminder that danger lurked just above them. He clutched Mia's hand tighter, feeling her tremble beside him. "Shoo," Max whispered, his voice urgent but barely audible. They reached the bottom step, and they were met with an even heavier silence. It pressed in on them, the dark air thick and suffocating. Jacob squinted into the gloom, trying to discern anything, a clue, a sign that they weren't utterly alone. The walls were damp and cold, and a musty smell clung to the air like a warning. Behind him, he heard the faint scuff of shoes, the door above swinging shut with a resonating thud that sent a shiver down his spine. "We need to get low," Max said, crouching and gesturing for them to follow suit. Jacob followed hesitantly, heart racing like he was about to leap off the edge of a cliff. "Where do we even go?" Jacob hissed, panic twisting his stomach into knots. "There should be an old storage room at the far end," Max whispered back. "If we can make it there." Mia glanced around wildly, her eyes wide with fear. "And then what? We can't just stay hidden forever." "Trust me, it's better than being caught out here," Max retorted sharply. The footfalls above grew louder, now accompanied by muffled voices. One of them sounded like the same voice that called out before, laced with confidence. "They couldn't have gone far. They're still in the building. Spread out." Their world narrowed into a harsh spotlight of life or death. Jacob's thoughts swirled like a whirlpool, colliding into fears of being discovered, of being found. "What is it I'm running from?" With a shared glance of determination, the three of them took off, scuttling across the floors that seemed to groan beneath them. Each footfall felt like an alarm, echoing into the void of the dark, but they had no choice. They were a team, cornered together. They reached the far side, and as Max pushed open a wooden door, the hinges squeaked ominously, a fate foretold in every creak. Inside, the room was cramped, filled with rusted tools and broken furniture. "All right, stay quiet now," Max said, lifting a finger to his lips. They huddled together, backs pressed against the wall, hearts synchronizing with the frantic pace of their breaths. The voices outside grew more distinct. "Check the basement. They have to be down there." Jacob's chest tightened as he felt the icy grip of dread tighten around him. "What if they find us?" he breathed, the words escaping like a whisper of panic. "They want tea." "They want tea," Mia echoed, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Then suddenly, an explosion of sound erupted from outside, something crashing against metal. Jacob jumped, wide-eyed, as he caught a glimpse through the flickering light shadows moving, frantic and clawing. Max's eyes widened. "They're coming." He pulled Jacob and Mia behind a stack of old crates just as the door burst open, throwing a wave of light into their desperate hiding spot. Three figures stormed in, silhouettes dancing wildly against the cracked walls. One of them leaned against a wall, breathing heavily, searching. Jacob's heart raced as he held back the urge to scream. Were they really prepared to face whatever horror was to come? Were they even safe here, in the claustrophobic silence of that room? "Listen," one of the intruders shouted. "Check every corner. They're here, I can feel it." Time slowed to a crawl. Jacob exchanged a terrified look with Mia. They were trapped, but would this storm of shadows drive them further into the darkness or towards the truth of their entangled fates? As the footsteps drew closer, Jacob felt a wild surge of determination rise in him. "Stay ready," he urged softly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." And just then, that cold realization hit him. Beneath the chaos of survival, there was something deeper lurking. Something that connected them all in ways they had yet to understand. With one last shuddering breath, they braced for the ultimate confrontation. How would they unravel the truth that tied them together? Would they emerge alive, or would their past entangle them forever? The air was thick, heavy with apprehension and the faint scent of rust. Jacob held his breath, heart pounding in his chest, as the intruders swept their flashlights through the room, illuminating dust motes swirling like trapped spirits. The beam stopped just inches from where the three of them crouched. "Over there," one of the figures shouted, pointing to the far shelf. Max instinctively pressed closer to Jacob and Mia, their bodies trembling with the weight of stillness. Every instinct screamed at them to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The moment felt suspended in time, like a dramatic pause on the brink of chaos. "Check the crates," another voice barked. The urgency in their tone sent a fresh wave of dread through Jacob. He could see shadows shifting, moving closer, their faces concealed in darkness but their intent all too clear. Mia's breath was shaky against his ear. "What do we do?" It was a whisper that carried the weight of their collective fear. "Just stay quiet," Max hissed. His eyes darted around, calculating their next move. Jacob's gaze flicked to a small, barred window high on the wall. It was their only escape, but there was no way he could reach it without drawing attention. His mind raced. If they could just outsmart them, wait, Jacob murmured, an idea igniting his thoughts. If he could create a distraction, they might find a way through. "I'll draw them away." Max shot him a panicked look, shaking his head vigorously. "No way. If they catch you, trust me." He squeezed Mia's hand, the warmth of her skin a desperate comfort. "I'll be fast." Before he could second-guess himself, Jacob shot out from behind the crates, flinging himself into the open. "Hey, over here," he shouted, his voice echoing against the stone walls. The instant he called out, he felt the eyes of the intruders snap in his direction. "Get him!" one of them yelled, charging forward. Jacob's blood turned to ice as he bolted down the far corridor behind him, adrenaline kicking in. Each step felt heavy, like running through molasses as he knew they would be right behind him. He sprinted, fumbling for a door, anything, and spotted an exit on the left. Jacob yanked it open, throwing himself into the next room, his heart racing as he scanned for Mia and Max. The room was dim, cluttered with old equipment and forgotten furniture. "Where did he go?" one of the pursuers shouted from the hallway. Swiftly, Jacob ducked behind a large, rusted piece of machinery, silent as he listened. Heart hammering, he strained to hear their footsteps drawing closer, the panic washing over him in waves. "Did you see which way he went?" The echo of his heartbeat nearly drowned out the sound of the intruder's rising frustration, but a glimmer of hope flickered in his chest as he noticed a narrow door on the opposite wall. Could he reach it? Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. "Mia? Jacob?" she called, panic piercing the air. "Here," Jacob responded. Surprised that they had found each other in the chaos, he dashed toward her voice. And as he rounded a corner, he stumbled upon a scene that rocked him to his core. Max, facing off against one of the assailants, tension crackling like electricity in the air. "Get away from him," Jacob yelled, rushing in despite the danger. They couldn't lose anyone, not now. The intruder turned, a look of recognition dawning on his face. Just as he raised a hand to strike, Max caught him off guard with a swift jab, sending the intruder stumbling back. "Run!" Max shouted. They surged for the narrow door, Brian right behind them. "Stop!" he bellowed, rage fueling his movement. The door swung wide open, leading to a winding staircase that disappeared into darkness. "Go!" Max shouted again, and they charged through, plunging into the unknown depths. It was either freedom or doom. As they descended, the last of the intruder's shouts echoed above them, mixing with their racing breaths. But just when they thought they'd escaped, another terrible realization hit Jacob. This was only getting started. How many others were down there? What secrets awaited them in the shadows below? Would there be any way to escape this nightmare alive? The air grew thicker as Jacob, Mia, and Max descended the staircase, the darkness wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Beams from flashlights danced wildly above them, tauntingly close, and panic surged through Jacob's veins. He felt the fear wash over him like icy water, cold and unrelenting. "Mia, are you okay?" he gasped, glancing back to check her expression. Her face was pale but determined. She nodded, guiding him with a flicker of courage that reignited his own. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about unraveling the truth, a truth hanging like a sword over their heads. "Keep going," Max urged, his voice low but firm. "Their SA basement. We might find something there." The urgency in his tone fueled them, propelling them further down the grim steps. Just as they reached the bottom, a sickening realization washed over Jacob. They were not alone. The echoes of distant voices surrounded them, the ominous murmur of a gathering growing louder by the second. A dark curtain of dread hung over their heads, whispering that shadows were alive here, hiding secrets, deep-rooted and twisted. Jacob's heart pounded like a war drum as they found themselves in a vast room, lit only by flickering lights strung haphazardly. Old machinery filled the corners, remnants of forgotten times. But it wasn't the dusty relics that froze him. It was the sight of a table at the center, bare but marked with deep scratches, as if something terrifying had happened here. "Mia," he murmured, the weight of fear heavy on his tongue. "We might need to fight our way out of this." "No," she started, eyes widening. But before she could finish, a sharp bang echoed behind them, and the door slammed open, a figure silhouetted against the light. It was the stranger, his expression colder than the coppery taste of fear in Jacob's mouth. "Did you really think you could run from the truth?" he taunted, stepping inside with a devilish confidence. "You're in way over your head. Who are you?" Jacob shouted, desperation clawing at him. "What do you want?" "Your mother, and the secrets she took with her," the stranger said, his laughter chilling. "You'll want to uncover those if you want to survive. Stop playing games." Jacob snapped, frustration boiling over. "What do you know about her?" But as he spoke, the door behind the stranger swung wide again, and more shadows spilled into the room, faces familiar but also twisted by intensity. They were there to confront their past, and they were ready. "Enough with the theatrics," one of the newcomers growled, stepping forward. "The past is a heavy burden, Jacob. It's time to break free from it." Mia shivered beside Jacob, sensing the unease harmonizing with fear as panic clashed against the thrill of uncovering family secrets. "Break free?" Jacob echoed. "You think running or hiding will undo the pain? Joining us might be the only way to end it," the stranger said again, moving in closer. "Do you really think your mother left without reason? The darkness she was involved in, it's still out there, and it's ready to claim you, too." Max, edging forward, seized Jacob's shoulder with a firm grip. "Is it true? Jacob, is there more to this than we realize? We need to know." The tension crackled as time hung in the balance, and Jacob felt the gravity of the moment wanting to crush him. His back hammered against the wall of uncertainty, either confront the nightmares of the past or risk losing everything now. "Show me the truth," Jacob shouted. His heart thundered in his chest, an anthem of courage igniting hope in the suffocating darkness surrounding them. At that moment, the shadows shifted, and the stranger gestured forward, revealing a wall covered in images and notes, a gruesome collage of Jacob's mother that unraveled her secret life before his very eyes. Photos of familiar faces twisted with sinister smiles, and documents detailing transactions faded into existential dread. "You see?" the stranger continued, his voice transforming from taunting to earnest. "She was part of something far larger than you could ever imagine. Something that, if you're tied to it, might just claim you. What do I need to do?" Jacob felt himself leaning closer, caught between horror and clarity. "Embrace the truth, Jacob. Learn what she was protecting you from, and you may find the power to fight back," he replied, something in his eyes almost empathetic. Suddenly, Mia spoke up, stealing her resolve. "If you're asking us to face the dark with you, we will. But we do this together." Their united front seemed to shift the atmosphere, a flicker of hope igniting like a flame through the shadows. They had been raw and vulnerable, trapped in the confines of old pain, but now something had shifted. This was the moment. "Yes," Jacob affirmed, feeling the adrenaline surge back into his veins. "Whatever it takes, we're facing this together." In that instant, the fear morphed into determination. As they stood resolute, the shadows that had once threatened to suffocate them started to recede. Whether they were diving deeper into darkness or clawing their way into light, they had chosen to confront the nightmares together. The reality was dire, but the choice remained: to rewrite their story or to let it consume them. The hushed voices of the strangers turned into resolve, guaranteeing that whatever lay ahead, they would carve through it arm in arm. With silent nods, Jacob, Mia, and Max took a step forward into the uncovering truth. This was just the beginning. That if you want to see where this journey leads, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait for the next thrilling chapter. Smash that like button now to fuel our community and show your support. We want to hear your reactions, your theories. Flood the comments with your thoughts and feelings about the shocking truths we've unveiled. And don't forget to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this saga. This is the moment to connect, to rally around the story that binds us together. Don't let this end here.